So when you shoot a multi-camera sitcom, the audience, they bring in an audience, and it could take, I don't know, it could easily take 5 hours to shoot a half hour of television.
22 minutes, 5 hours to shoot 22.
Yeah. And so what's the audience doing while they're resetting the scenes or the actors are changing?
Well, I've got a lot of stories. I had a guy die once.
What?
And I just thought he was taking a nap. Yeah. I kept looking up going, God, I don't, a comic wants everybody engaged. Right. And he's just, and at the end, he's not leaving. The bus is gone and they cart him out and he died on the way to the hospital. I guess they revived him, then he died.
You're listening to Screenwriters Need to Hear This with Michael Jamin.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Screenwriters Need to Hear This. I'm Michael Jamin. I got a cool guest today. So as many of you know, my very first comedy writing job in Hollywood, I was a joke writer on a morning TV show on ABC called The Mike and Maty Show. And my next guest is Michael Berger, the host of Mike and Maty. Mike, thank you so much for joining me here. What a
nice to see and reconnect with you again. It's been a few.
And you are, I know you're not quite a screenwriter, but I think you have a lot to, just a lot to add to the conversation because you're a professional talk show host and you've hosted so much. I'm going to blow through some of your credits real fast just so people.
Well, don't blow through them. I want you to land on them and marinate on them for a while.
Let's linger on them unnecessarily for a long time. So obviously Mike and Maty, but the Home and Family, Family Feud, the live version, as well as The Price is Right, the live version, $1,000 Pyramid, Match Game, Iron Chef, Personals, the late night dating show, Straight to the Heart, not to mention your long history as a stand-up comedian on cruise ships and then later doing warm-up. I want for audiences, for sitcom audiences, which I know I know we've been on many of the same shows, that's a whole nother level of comedy. I want to talk about that, but first I want to talk about like where you began. It was how did you become a comedian for cruise ships?
Well, a lot of these entries into showbiz come in through the side door, and this was certainly the case. I was a big fan of Steve Martin.
Yeah.
And back in the late 70s, there was a contest where they were looking for a Steve Martin look-alike, sound-alike, and the payoff, the winner, got a spot on The Tonight Show with Carson. So I figured this is my entry in. So I figured that I win this contest and I get my own show. Well,
and you did.
Well, kind of. You had to submit a cassette tape, audio cassette tape of you doing Steve Martin. No video cameras, right? Just a cassette. And they wanted that in theory in front of a live audience. Well, I hadn't done any stand-up. There's no live audience, but my audience in the day was my classroom. So I went back to my high school and said, can I borrow the classroom and just do Steve Martin's material, and I'll take my best cut from that. So I went to 5 teachers. I did 5-minute sets, and I submitted that tape with the best of the 5 to the radio station, who said, yeah, great, come on up to the Tower Records parking lot on Sunset, where there's 25 of us dressed like Steve Martin doing, You're a Wild and Crazy Guy. I win that and go to San Francisco, and I meet the western half of the United States at the boarding house, and I win that. And the finals are at the Comedy Store with the entire country represented. I'm one of 6. Steve Martin is there. Carl Reiner is there. And the winner, the payoff, is the Tonight Show spot. And I do my thing. And my twist on it was I came out white suit, arrow through the head, no pants, with boxers that said ABC News Brief. So I figured I'd add my joke. And the guy I was up against that I thought was my competition played banjo so well and looked like Steve. I thought, there's no way.
Right.
He does his bit. I do my bit. It's a tie between me and this guy from Nashville that looked like Steve. Steve Martin comes on stage and he's holding our wrists like a ref in a boxing match. And he holds up the other guy's hand. Okay. That guy wins. I lose. 3 months later, I'm watching The Tonight Show and Johnny goes, we have a guest tonight, and Steve Martin comes out and he's out for about 30 seconds and you realize it's not Steve. The real Steve comes out bound and gagged yelling, this guy's an imposter. That guy goes away. We never hear from him again. And that was my first taste at showbiz.
And you were like, what, 20 something?
Yeah. I was 27, 28. And somebody saw that and said, hey, can you do that on a cruise ship? Can you do stand-up on a ship?
But wait, what would have you done if you had won this? Because then you would have been on The Tonight Show, but you didn't have an act.
Well, I would do kind of what that kid did. The whole bit was to pay Steve Martin's movie off, The Jerk, that was coming out.
Okay.
And it was just a sight gag. But I certainly would have come up with something.
And then
So what I wound up doing initially after that, and this is in
Uh-huh.
the height of all the singing comedy telegrams, remember back in the day, Dancing
Yeah.
Bears and roller skates.
Yeah.
So I did a Steve Martin lookalike, sound-alike comedy telegram where you, Michael, would hire me to make fun of somebody, and I would get all the information, and I would go wherever they are, a bank, an office. I actually stopped a wedding once as Steve Martin, arrow through the head, white suit. Hold on, I don't think this is right, and do a little Steve Martin thing. And there was a guy in the audience at a restaurant who came over after I just did this Rickles kind of riff. And he goes, "That's very funny. Can you do ships?" And I said, "Sure." And that's how I got on a cruise ship. And I'd
And
come
then-
on as Steve, and then I'd do my whole act after that, which I developed over time.
But your act was basically kind of like making fun of Steve, or was it all
Well,
brand new
no,
stuff?
you quickly, no, I had some comedy ideas. But what I realized as soon as I got on the ship, 70% of the material comes from being on the ship.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever worked ships, but
No.
oh, there's so much material. It's such a ripe group,
And then
you know.
It's so interesting. You never even did the comedy clubs. Like, you really came up your own way.
I really did. I did a few because of that little bit of notoriety, but the cruise ships were a better paying gig. You got to see the world,
Uh-huh.
and you really felt like you were in the business because you had a band behind you. Generally, there was an opening act.
Uh-huh.
The only downside was if you didn't do well, you'd have to see these people for the next 3 days, 4 days, 7 days.
But how
But
many
I loved it.
how many shows would you do on a so you were like, let's say it was a 7-day tour. How many shows would you do?
2.
That's it? Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I would do the 3 and 4 day cruises down to Ensenada and back.
Uh-huh.
And so I would do welcome aboard show. I would be the headliner. I'd come out and do my hour.
Uh-huh.
And then they said, you can do anything you want on Sunday night. So I'd go in the back lounge and then just try stuff. And that's really where you kind of learned what's funny, what's not. So I got to do my, God, for anybody listening that remembers the Catskills in those old days where
Mhm.
you just work, well, clubs today, you go out and work material. I could go in that back room and I would go on at midnight and the buffet would start at midnight. And my goal as a performer was if I could keep people from getting up and leaving my show to go eat again, then I realized I had some pretty good material. So I would do an hour and a half, 2 hours in the back room.
Wow.
But the moment that really, maybe this is where you're headed, that launched my career was in the middle of the cruise. They had a passenger talent show. And on one of these cruises, the cruise director came up to me and said, "Hey, can you fill in and host the passenger talent show? I have other things to do."
Uh-huh.
And he meant that as a verb. I mean, this guy was, he was all over the ship, just
Right.
going
Okay.
after whatever moved. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I said, "Well, what do I do?" And he goes, "Well, these people sign up throughout the week and then we turn them loose at midnight and they do whatever they do. Think America's Got Talent." And I
Uh-huh.
said, "Well, what would you like me?" Wait, introduce them, put a little show together, go at 11 o'clock at night, get with the piano player and you figure out maybe an order. I said, "Well,
Uh-huh.
okay, sounds like fun." So I did that. And I'm telling you, Michael, I had more fun doing that than any stand-up
Really?
because I had a chance to talk to somebody. Where are you from? What do you do? Right. And then you
Right.
turn them loose. But because, and it's not unlike warm-up, where someone else is the star, where someone else has the focus, you just set them up and turn them loose.
Yeah.
I had an 85-year-old woman get up and tap dance to the Lord's Prayer.
Uh-huh.
You don't need to top that.
Yeah, how do you? Right.
I mean, I had everything, right? So I started doing this, and about at the same time I was doing warm-up for a game show. We're going to go way back now, a dance show called Dance Fever,
Yes, quite.
which is again like these dancing shows, but way back, right?
It was Solid Gold and Dance Fever. Those are the
That's
two
it.
shows. Yeah.
And they had 3 celebrity judges and they would judge the dancers. And the cue card woman comes up to me on a commercial break and she goes, NBC is going to do a morning game show and they want somebody new, somebody unknown, someone that no one's heard of. I said, "That's me. I'm in the middle of the ocean. No one knows me." She goes, "Do you have a tape?" I said, "No, I got a tape. Sure, I got a tape." I got no tape. So the very next cruise I go back on, I put $2,500 on my credit card and I go
Mhm.
buy that 2-piece video system where you had to buy the base unit, the head unit.
Mhm.
And I brought that on the ship. I put it on a tripod. I put it back by the soundboard and I pushed record and I videotaped every one of these passenger talent shows that I hosted and then cut everybody out and then just kept my moment.
Right.
My first demo tape was 6 minutes of me doing that.
Right.
So this woman at Dance Fever says, "Get me that tape. I'll get it to NBC." The 2 people in charge were Jake Talbert and Brian Franz. They were the
Mhm.
presidents of daytime television, NBC. So she sends them the tape and I get a call. my agent and I come in. I have an agent at this point. And they go, do you know why you're here? And I said, yeah, Mary Steck was nice enough. I said, no, it's the guy at the end. I said, what do you mean? The old guy. Yeah, what about him? Well, there's this charming old man that I'm introducing and playing with, and he grabs the mic out of my hand and goes, you must be saying something very funny, but I don't get it. Well, it's a huge laugh. And the NBC exec said, the fact that that guy got the laugh and you let him have his moment, and you didn't come back over with one more ad lib of your own, tells me you got a sense of how to host. It's about making someone else shine. He said, we can teach you how to host a game show. What we can't teach you is the instinct to make someone else look better.
Were you aware of that though? I mean,
well, not really. Yeah. I mean, I got better at it, and I realized the sneaky joy of this is that if you get a laugh, then get out of the way. Put the onus back on them. When you do a talk show.
But when they said this to you, you're like, oh my God, I've been doing this all along and I didn't realize this? Or were you consciously doing that?
You know, I think there was sort of a Midwest polite mentality, kind of how I was raised, don't interrupt, all that kind of stuff. I think it kind of goes part and parcel. Just being, I don't know, polite's the perfect word. My dad was from Missouri. My mom was from Minnesota. We kind of raised in a polite family.
Right.
I just thought that was the right thing. But I also realized that, boy, you could use this to your advantage, right? You know, let them shine. And that I work at it to this day, trying to be a better listener and try to be better at picking my moments. That's how it started. That's literally how my career started.
So then what happened with that audition then?
So I got the pilot. I got the pilot for NBC, morning talk show. My very first time on a lot is at NBC, and I'm parked 6 spots down from Johnny Carson. He's got a white Corvette. His license plate said 360 guy. I thought that was a clever license plate, all-around guy.
Yeah.
I'm 6 spots down from Carson. I just got off the boat. I am so far from showbiz. I'm walking on the set. We shoot the pilot. At the same time, they're just about finished with the Tonight Show. We shot across the hall. Very little security back in the 80s. I open the door and I walk in, and I sit next to Gregory Peck. Hello, Michael. Going, showbiz is so easy. He goes on, he comes out, I say hi, Carson walks by, gives me one of these, everybody walks out, and we all go home. Kicker of the story is, pilot did not get picked up.
Right.
But the production company, Reg Grundy, who did all of those shows back in the day, Sale of the Century and Scrabble, liked what I did and put me on retainer for a year to develop something else.
But did they, and I never even asked you about on Mike and Maty, like, did they coach you at all before you start doing this? Did they rehearse you, or is it like, well, this is who we hired, let him do his thing?
It's a good question. In the game show world, when we were getting ready to do a game show, they would remind me that, you know, the first half of the game is fun and Q&A and get some joy out of these contestants and root for them. And then when it shifts to the bonus round, there really needs to be a shift in tone. This money is serious money, and this can change someone's life. And this is not the place to go for a joke. Let's kind of shift the focus and really, you know, be there for them and root for them and console them if they lose and be happy for them when they win. So there was a little bit of that. Some of it, most of it's just learning, you know, where your beats are, getting in and getting out.
What about Mike and Maty or Home Family? Same kind of thing?
Mike and Maty was a whole nother league, because that was morning network everywhere in the country.
Yeah.
And I was working with someone, which I had never done. So I came in for the audition and did well. And the woman I had auditioned with, they had a deal to put in place to put her on the air.
Right.
And as I was driving home, my agent called and said, I don't know what happened in there, but they now want to do the show with you and they're letting her go. I said, wow. Well, don't give her my address.
Yeah.
And he said, we now have to find a woman to pair up with you for this morning talk show. And I thought, well, how do we do that? I said, well, Disney will set it all up, because this is a Disney production. And I auditioned, and audition's not even the right word. I sat down with 85 women and just said, how you doing? How you doing? And we just try to see if there was any chemistry. It's like dating somebody. Is there a connection? Maty.
I'm sorry I have to interrupt, but this I had no idea about, because it seems like, because they sell a show to ABC. They go, it's going to be a morning show.
Actually, let me back up. The show is going to be in syndication for Disney, which they could syndicate across the country and do anything. ABC is not involved at this moment.
Okay, right.
So they had a development deal with this woman. They passed on. They put me in the spot. Now they got to pair me up. They pair me up. Maty and I had instant chemistry. And about an hour after her audition, they say, we love you both, let's do it. So we shot a pilot
Right.
at KHJ on Melrose, a $40,000 pilot.
Right.
I mean, that's about as cheap as you can get. And they took that pilot out and tested it.
Mhm.
And it tested as high as Oprah tested back in the day.
Right.
ABC got wind of this and said, forget syndication, we'll put you on the air now.
Right.
And 3 months later, Maty and I hit the ground running, not knowing each other, really. And what began a 2-year, 535 episode run with someone I got to know every day, because we shot literally 5 days a week, Monday through Friday.
So that's
interesting. Got to know each other, got to learn the whole thing.
I didn't know that was the origin of it, because they're basically saying, okay, we're selling a morning TV show. We don't know who's in it yet, but if you like the idea of a morning TV show, we're going to audition.
You know, back in the day, they were handing out these. Yeah, they were handing these talk shows out pretty regularly. It was kind of the thing. Fairly inexpensive to produce, I guess, although we had quite a budget. This was Morning Network. This was a big official show that we traveled, and there was a nice budget for a big, beautiful set, and everybody, got what they needed to pull this off. And then celebrities would catch on and come on, and we had our favorites, and you got to sit down there with your idols. And there was a little pushback. The fact I want to talk to you about this, because ABC was adamant that this show was not a comedy show in the morning. You're taking people's time away from them, and you got to give them something. They got to feel they haven't wasted their morning. So there's always a recipe. There's always something to learn from.
Right.
And I came in kind of hot with this idea of comedy, and they're going, no, people don't want to laugh in the morning. And I went, well, I got to disagree with you there. But Max Muchnick and Max and who? Max and Dave, right?
David Cohen, yeah.
Who created a little show called
Will and Grace.
Right. So they were the first writers on Mike and Maty, and it was just overkill. We didn't need that much horsepower from them. They were so talented, they went on and did what they did.
Right.
But I think because they brought me on, they certainly liked my sense of humor and thought this would be a nice way to wake up in the morning. So eventually they embraced the humor, as long as we balanced it with information.
Yeah. And that show, it was Tamara Rawit. She was the producer.
Started it.
She started it. And I guess her vision was Letterman in the morning, but Letterman had a show in the morning. So
that's where you don't want to go down that path, and that kind of scared them. So they were very, and part of this was wise, that let's not waste people's time in the morning. Let's find that balance of being entertaining and give them a takeaway. And we realized that I certainly found that balance. Maty and I started to feel our own, beats there on where we could jump in, and we each got our own segments where we could shine. Yeah. Maty was the greatest at locking in on a guest. And Carol Burnett came on, and Maty just started crying. That's how she started the interview. It's because Maty learned English, having come from Cuba on one of the last freedom flights out. Right. And now the show that she watched to learn English by, the Carol Burnett show, she's sitting there and she starts crying. Wild? Well, that's a great host, showing your emotion and being interested. So I love working with her.
Yeah, she's delightful. Yeah, and we had, I remember taking, going to your dressing room, with index cards for some jokes. Here, what about this?
And I wanted that so much. To me, that felt like Letterman. That felt like the Tonight Show. I was aching for that. I don't remember the conversation we had or what I fought for. I wanted Jonathan Winters on the show, and I had done warm up on his sitcom, and they said, no, that's not our audience. And I went, what's not our audience? Funny? Yeah. So I pushed. 6 months later, Jonathan came on, and I got to sit with him, and I got to do what Johnny Carson did with him, which was give him a hat and then do a character. And I thought, I'm in heaven. Yeah. This is as good as it gets. But it took some pushing, because they thought, who wants Johnny in the morning? I said, wait a minute. Yeah. Who doesn't want to laugh in the morning?
And but before that, you were still also doing warm up, and then and so just so people know. So when you shoot a multi-camera sitcom, the audience, they bring in an audience, and it could take, it could easily take 5 hours to shoot a half hour of television.
22 minutes, 5 hours to shoot 22.
Yeah. And so what's the audience doing while they're resetting the scenes, or the actors are changing?
Well, I've got a lot of stories. I had a guy die once.
What?
And I just thought he was taking a nap. Yeah. I kept looking up going, God, a comic wants everybody engaged. Right. And he's just, and at the end, he's not leaving. The bus is gone, and they cart him out, and he died on the way to the hospital. I guess they revived him, then he died.
What show is this?
Women in Prison.
I don't remember Women in Prison.
Sure, sure you do.
No.
It was a sitcom with Wendy Jo Sperber and Peggy Cass, an all-star lineup. Blake Clark played the warden,
Yeah.
and it was a sitcom about women in prison. I know, and I was the warm-up. So
And then
I did all of those types of I mean, I did big ones. I did shows you'd know.
yeah.
Mr. Belvedere is where I started.
Yeah. I
And
remember that
it's
one.
really where you learn, I don't know, a comic that's got 5 hours, unless you're talking maybe Leno, but you do your act, but then you have to figure something else out. And that's where these hosting chops came in. And,
Yeah.
you're like a surgeon on call. The moment the bell stops, then I start talking to the audience, and then they're ready to go again. It could be right in the middle of a joke you're telling. It doesn't matter. I'm here to serve.
Yeah.
And they would do, again, for those uninitiated, maybe 15 scenes in a sitcom of 50 pages, 60 pages. They'll do each scene 2 or 3 or 4 times. The actors want another shot at the scene. Maybe they've got another joke laid in, or maybe they want another angle. And each time they do it, that audience has to be geared up, not only reminded, hey, where were we?
Right.
And sometimes literally reminded because a lens went down and we have a 30-minute stop between scenes 7 and 8.
Yeah.
That's happened. So you keep them entertained. And I think
actually
that was the greatest training for me anyway.
It must have been, because it's actually a really important job, because, as a TV writer, we want the audience to have, they need the energy. They got to keep
really
giving it to
do.
the audience. And it's the warm-up's job to keep them engaged and not like wanting to leave and get bored and zoned out. And
Well, I'm glad you said that, because
very important. Yeah.
the writers will come to me and say, how's the audience tonight? Or if the show's not going well, they're going, hey, can't you do anything? Well, I'll certainly try. Sometimes it just wasn't that funny. Or the reverse is true. I have a Dick Van Dyke story that is painful. He did a sitcom with his son called Van Dyke and Company. And Walter Barnett produced, and they brought me in because I had a nice reputation of being the warm-up guy.
Yeah.
So I came in and did the pilot, and it's like taking candy from a baby. I'm killing. And Walter Barnett walks up to the rail, because I'm about 3 feet up, audience, and without stopping, he says, just pull it back a little bit, and then keeps walking. And a couple scenes later, more laughs. He goes, less, just less. And I'm, okay, now we're like 5 scenes in, and he pulls me up and he goes, stop telling jokes. I'll tell you why later. I went, oh my God. So now I'm just talking to the audience. And I happened to get one guy in the audience that was a mortician. I go, what do you do for a living? Mortician, big laugh. He looks at me like, what are you doing? People are dying to get in. I go, well, it's not, he's doing it. At the end of the show, he goes, I got to let you go. Dick is not happy. Dick Van Dyke's not happy. Yeah. The show's just not coming together like he had hoped, and there's a lot of laughter when we're not shooting. So I'll keep you posted. So the next week they bring somebody else in, and it's awful. So they bring me back, but he said, okay, you can come back, but you can't do the puppet bit and you can't do these 3 jokes. I had some killer bits that I know I could rely on. And so I finished the 6 episodes. I did 5 of them. So,
but it's actually, warm-up is a pretty high-paying job. It's a pretty desirable job.
It was crazy. I'd never seen that kind of money for one night. I'm not doing the clubs. I'm not on tour, and I'm not only in town. I'm getting union money. So now I'm getting my SAG card, and then they try to take it away from us.
What's that? That's a union job? I didn't know that.
It was after I fought for it. It was, then it wasn't. Then a bunch of us got together and went to the union and said, hey, we're a pretty important part of this production. They agreed. Actors stood up for us and spoke on our behalf, and we wound up getting union money, which is how I got vested. And but I mean, I don't think I'm speaking out of school. Warm-ups could range, back in the day, was $800 for the night, and 5,000 or 6,000 a night was not uncommon at the end.
Yeah, I know that for sure. And then how do
you knock out a couple of those a week, and all of a sudden you're going, I'm
rich.
Showbiz is great, but you're also not on camera, and you're thinking, I remember having shows on the air and then going back and doing warm-up and candidly thinking, kind of a step back. And a producer said to me, I wouldn't look at it that way. He said, do you like doing it? And I said, I love doing it. He goes, you're good at it. I said, well, okay. And he said, that carries a lot of weight. If people are going to see you work, let them see you doing what you do well. And I kind of reframed that and got back into the warm-up and wound up doing a little show with people that you probably or one actress that was probably everyone's favorite or has been, and that was Betty White.
Yeah,
And I
worked with
came
her
back
before,
and did
sure.
Hot in Cleveland and did 135 episodes. I spent 135 Friday nights with Betty White.
Yeah, she's lovely. Yeah, I worked with her on an animated show. She couldn't be. She was so lovely.
Sweet, right?
Yeah.
And gives you everything you'd hope.
Oh, for like such a pro. I remember I've told this story. I was doing an animated show, so I was directing her, and she was, I don't know,
Oh.
maybe 15 feet in front of me. And I'm at a table. I get my script. I'm giving her notes, and she's delivering. She's great. But after a take, I'd give her a note. Can you try it like this, like that? And she was very pleasant. But after a few minutes, she stops and she goes, "I'm sorry, dear, but you're going to have to yell. My hearing isn't as good as it used to be." And I said, "If you think I'm yelling at Betty White, you're out of your fucking mind." And she just lost it. She loved that. She was so fun. I mean, she's like, she was so
when you
sweet.
would see her on the set, the room changed. Everybody was aware. It's like the Pope walked in.
Yeah.
And the little ad libs that she would throw off to the side, which having done 135 of them, I realized she had a lot to go to. But the first time I heard a couple of these, for instance, cameras rolling, awkward pause. Betty looks up and goes, if no one's saying anything, it's probably my turn. That kills. Director goes, "We have to go back." Betty goes, "How far?" The pilot. So she had about 50 of these ready to go.
Yeah.
And there was a scene where once a season, they would pair the girls up. Wendy Malick, Jane Leaves, Valerie Bertinelli, they're all single as Betty was. So they would have a date show where all the women got paired up and the girls paired each other up with dates. So they picked Carl Reiner as Betty's love interest. And there's a scene where she and Carl kiss. And, crowd goes nuts. And then we stop. And Carl's 15 feet from me. And I had interviewed Carl on Mike and Maty. In fact, I let him cut my tie, which is an old Johnny Carson thing I'll get back to in a minute. But I said, "Hey, Carl, you just kissed Betty. What was that like?" And he goes, without missing a beat, "Oh, it was unbelievable. She has her original teeth she gets all of her own teeth and her original tongue." And he says that at 90 without missing a beat. And you saw these two connecting, right, as the old guards of the business.
Legends. But how did you get that first warm-up job? I mean, walking into that is hard.
Yeah,
but even getting the opportunity to do it is hard.
Yeah, I go back to the cruise ship. I was doing warm up on the ship, and a producer for Jeopardy was on, who worked for Merv Griffin, and they were doing this dance show. And she goes, "Can you get me a tape?" Then by that time I had, and so the very first warm up I did was Dance Fever, and one of the celebrity judges was Christopher Hewitt, who said to me on a break, "Oh, dear lad, you should come do our show." And I did. I did that show for 7 years.
Wow. Wow.
And then that kind of mushroomed into other warm ups.
Because you've had a really unconventional path into Hollywood, I would think.
Yeah, but my sights were set early on. I saw that Carson did a game show and then a talk show, and I went, well, that works for me. So let me see if I can get a game show. Let's see if I can get a talk show, and I've accomplished those. I certainly.
But you were never a weatherman.
No, I never.
What happened?
Do I look the part? Was that a slam? Is that a quiet writer slam?
Letterman was a weather.
He was.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's another. As long as you're in front of the camera, I think.
Well, in the LA market, you couldn't get past Fritz Coleman. Right?
Yeah, right.
He did that for 40 years. Who also did stand up. And I never wanted to do that. And the opportunity to act had come up a number of times. And with all humility, I just said, no, I don't think I would be good enough. I knew what I liked. I knew I liked talking to people, basically.
But you've done some acting.
I figured I'd just stay in my lane.
But you've done acting. I know you have, because you were in an episode that I wrote. You were in an episode of Lois and Clark.
Yeah, that's not on the resume. I just don't, those got handed to you, because you were on the air doing something else. I got to present at the Emmys because we were on the air, and Maty and I handed Oprah her Emmy Award, and we're going down the elevator with Oprah, and she's singing our theme song. And it turns out she was a fan of the show, kind of was our godmother, because when Mike and Maty went across the country, we aired in Chicago after her. So she was on at 9, we were on at 10 a.m. And we were an instant hit because we followed Oprah.
Yeah.
And so much so that Oprah became a fan of the show and invited us to everything. I went to the Oscars with Oprah. I sat at dinner at Spago's with Oprah. I mean, does she call now? No, she does not call now.
Were there any, because you had a lot of great guests on Mike and Maty, were there any that you're still in touch with that you kind of became friends with?
Yeah, George Hamilton, Robert Wagner. Robert Wagner is about as cool as anybody gets.
Yeah.
And he asked me to MC the charity event that he was doing. It was a Jimmy Stewart relay race. It was a celebrity race in Griffith Park. I said I'd be happy to. And he goes, "Do you want to play golf?" And I went, "Well, I don't. I can play. I can hack around." But he's like a member at Bel Air, and I said, "Well, yeah, maybe that would be nice, you know." And I'm just pushing him off because I didn't want to embarrass myself. So the next year I do the event again, and he goes, "Are you still playing golf?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Are we going to play?" And I went, he goes, "Do I have to send a car for you?" And I went, "No, RJ is what he wanted to be called." I said, "I just didn't feel like I could play."
Right.
When I first met him, this is so Robert Wagner. I'm standing there with a buddy of mine, and I see him coming, and we have to go to the stage, and he comes up and he takes his arm and he puts it through mine and goes, "Michael, walk with me." I mean, so old school.
Right.
Michael.
Right.
So, how are you, my friend? I'm good. Thank you, RJ.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they were idols I got a chance to meet. God, I met President Carter, had retired, but I got to do Habitat Humanity with him and sit down and build a house and talk to him about life, and every musician you ever heard of. How about the artist Jewel made her first appearance on Mike and Maty? We put
I
her
did
on
not
there.
know that. I remember James Brown. I remember walking past James Brown in the hallway.
Sure.
remember
Leanne Rimes
Jewel.
made her first appearance with us.
Really? Well, maybe I wasn't there for that, or I don't know. Yeah, that's so funny. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, James Brown. So you were there for James?
Yeah, yeah.
And he sat down and he said something that wound up on Entertainment Tonight that night. He said the music business is funded by drug money. Everybody went, "Did he just say that?" And all of a sudden, now we're, hard news reporters. We felt like, I don't know, Charlie Rose or something. We got a scoop.
I don't
and
remember
we just
that.
stumbled into it.
And then how did you what was it like, just like rolling? I mean, I know you must have talking points on, when you're interviewing guests, but
Oh boy, you're so right. A celebrity gets interviewed the night before and then they have bullet points. And the next day you kind of spit out those questions so they could comment on what they were pre-interviewed about. But, in conversation, sometimes things go another way. But as you know, the producer's job is to keep you, the host, on track. And we had, God bless her, Kathy Palmerino, I think her name was.
Yes.
Is that her name?
I don't remember,
she
but I
had
remember
interviewed,
Kathy. Yeah.
She had interviewed Robert Goulet the night before, and she had this list of questions, and she's just behind camera with this, and she's doing this. And I see her, and I'm ignoring her because something better is happening. And we get to the commercial, and she goes, "Michael, you did not ask any of those questions. What happened? What's wrong?" And I said, "Did you hear what Robert Goulet was saying?" She goes, "No, what?" Well, I said, the interview took a path down a different road. He had mentioned his father, and I noticed he'd paused, almost if he was going to tear up. And I thought there's something more to explore there. And I said, "What about your dad?" And he said, on his deathbed, his dad said, "Robert, come here." And Robert comes in and he goes, "Son, you're meant to sing. Go do that." Well, I mean, I got chills hearing that now. That was not on the cards. It was following the arc of a conversation. And sometimes these producers feel maybe they're not doing their job because we didn't ask those questions. But interviewing people is really about a conversation. So we had those moments where we went off the card, and I think made some friends there. There's some great interviews I'm very proud of. Patti LaBelle sat down with us and admitted that her 3 sisters had all died of cancer, and she wasn't sure she was going to see 50. And she starts to tear up. And we're going, she goes, "I must like you guys. We're 6 minutes in. Talk shows, you get 6 minutes, 7 minutes, maybe 2 segments, maybe 15 minutes. And I think we did some nice work and met some people in a very finite amount of time.
Hey, it's Michael Jamin. If you like my videos and you want me to email them to you for free, join my watch list. Every Friday, I send out my top 3 videos. These are for writers, actors, creative types. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. I'm not going to spam you, and it's absolutely free. Just go to michaeljamin.com/watchlist.
I remember those morning meetings. We talk about the show, and I remember sitting in the back, because I'm young. It's my first real writing, job, and they call me a producer. because that way they wouldn't have to pay me Writers Guild. So they said you're a producer, but I'm like, I'm not a producer. I can write stuff, but I remember thinking, how does everyone here know what to do? Like I really had no idea. It was I was in awe of the whole thing. How does everyone here know what to do?
But aren't you? But as the more you hung around, it kind of demystifies itself after a while, right?
Yeah, but there was also, to some degree, yes, but it was also like you only get one shot. It wasn't like you get to rehearse. It was like, you better get this right. We're on live TV. You know, we're not live, but we're on TV, and
Live to
we're not
tape,
doing
yeah.
it again. We're not doing it again. So
Yeah,
there's
that
no
was if
room.
if you concentrated on that, it would paralyze you. What I found starting to do this was that how in the world can we talk to somebody for 6 minutes and get anything out of it? That seems
Yes.
too short.
Yes.
And you learn to ask. There's a great quote by Blaise Pascal. He's a French philosopher, and the quote is, "If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter."
Right.
And it talks about the science, the art of being brief. Then you learn that in the talk show world, where you need to be concise and you take away all the stuff in the same way Jerry Seinfeld would take out a word that doesn't work in a joke. A good interview has become very, there's no Sophie's choice there. You know, you start cutting things away because it's not going to make it, and you stick with what works at that moment. So you become careful. You become good editors, you know, of yourself as you interview. But I found how it was so ethereal and so. I compared it to cotton candy. You would do it and it was gone, and then the next day we had to do it all over again.
Yes, right. Yeah.
The sheer volume of cranking out an hour a day for 2 years was mind-boggling to me. But I didn't have to do it myself. I had help.
Yeah,
you know?
and
I just had to show up refreshed.
The minute you recorded, I remember thinking, all the producers, like, you know, well, you're screwed. You got to do this. You're done. All that work you did is over now, and you have to do more. I mean, like, it doesn't end.
Yeah, and we went live to tape. We wouldn't stop unless there was something drastic happening. And once in a while, we would tape 2 shows on a Thursday so we could travel on a Friday to go to another town and maybe do something live there.
Right.
Unlike the show I did with Christina Ferrari, which was 2 hours live a day. There's no stopping. I mean, what goes wrong, you see, which was a whole nother level of fun.
But there's
too late.
There's an art, though, to getting people to be vulnerable, like you're saying, on television. Right now, you have 6 minutes, and then, like, sometimes you'll see it where an interviewer just like they're reading the question, they're just waiting to get the next question. They're not really in it, you know.
True. Were you there for Charlie Sheen?
I probably would.
Charlie Sheen comes on and he's nervous and he's sitting there and he's looking around. I go, "What's wrong, Charlie?" Because I don't know. No one's giving me anything to say. So what do you need? A cup of coffee would be nice. So I went over because we had a big set. We had a working kitchen. Yeah. So I got him a cup of coffee and we sat down. I go, "Anything else?" He goes, "Well, cream would be nice." So I went back and got him cream. That was such a fun interview because he really was authentic and he really was nervous, and we just played it. Yeah. Where you had some other guests that were, shall we say, just a little more controlled and didn't want to open up. And they were there to promote something. You know, that's what a talk show does, is we promote you doing whatever you're doing.
And what were you thinking when you're like, "Oh, I'm just tanking here. This is
the opposite.
Well.
Oh no, I'm thinking, let's do more of this. Now I felt, oh, now we're doing Letterman. Now we're doing a talk show where things are off the rails and there's nothing, and the big camera has to whip out of the way because no one had planned that. I lived those moments where something went wrong.
But when someone wasn't comfortable on camera, what about that?
Where it wasn't scripted, heavily scripted, where you would get something that wasn't planned.
No, that's fine. I mean, like when a guest is clearly, not engaging. They're just, they're struggling.
Well, you'd see the producer going, like, "Let's jump ahead."
Jump ahead to what? To what? What do I jump to?
We could tighten it up, and then the next guest can go longer. We had a little bit of an accordion. You find a way. There's a way to get in there somehow, some way. But they're not all. Some are better talk show guests than others.
Yeah. And
some come in. We had comedians. Had Richard Jenny on, who I went to his dressing room and I go, "What do you need?" And he gave me 5 setups. Hot dog, car, couch, whatever it was. Right. So he knew all the jokes he'd go to, and you just laid them in there.
Would you write those down, or you on a card, or you just
No, that
memorize
kind of
those?
stuff was just, yeah, they certainly had them on a card, but when we got a Comic-Con, I really felt, oh my God, I gotta kick up my game here, because this is really what I want to be. I mean, I idolize you men and women that had come
Yeah.
on.
There really is
So
a
Carl
whole
Reiner
art.
comes on,
Uh-huh.
and there's a very famous episode of The Tonight Show where Carl Reiner comes on and says to Johnny, I never make the best of The Tonight Show. I never make it. And he goes, I'd like to be part of those clips at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And Carson's going like, okay. And he goes, you're a great dresser. Johnny goes, oh, thank you. And he goes, stand up if you don't mind. And he goes, okay. So Carson's standing up and he's looking at his tie and he goes, the tie's not right, however. And he pulls out a pair of scissors and he cuts off Johnny's tie.
Right.
Johnny didn't know it. Fred DeCorvita had said to Johnny, hey, just don't wear your best clothes tonight. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, God.
So he cuts the tie, right?
Uh-huh.
At the end of our interview with Carl, I said, hey, there's a moment you had with Carson, and I would just be thrilled if we could recreate this. And he doesn't know where I'm going with this. I said, there was a moment where you cut Johnny's tie. And he goes, yes, I remember that. And I said, can I? And he goes, oh, no. My wife gave me. And I went, no, I don't want to cut your tie.
Right.
Would you cut my? He goes, I'd love to cut your tie. And he stands up and makes a production and cuts my tie.
Right.
And I have that tie cut with an autograph framed in my office.
Wow.
It was my moment of, I mean, those are the big moments, right? Meeting your idols.
Yeah.
Like Jonathan Winters. I assume people listening know Johnny, remember Johnny, the greatest improv artist ever. And Robin Williams was a fan of his.
Yep.
So I get to do warm up on a sitcom called Davis Rules. Remember that with Bonnie Hunt?
No.
Yeah.
How do I
He
know
won
that?
an Emmy for that.
Okay.
Jonathan Winters did. So Jonathan Winters, Bonnie Hunt, the kid, Giovanni Ribisi.
Yep. Wow.
So they would have a script. John enters kitchen, ... popcorn on couch. Because
Yeah.
what are you going to do with this maniac? So he would start, he'd go off, roars of laughter, but Jonathan loved the audience. So he comes up to me, maybe we're a half hour in. I'd never met Jonathan Winters. And he walks by the rail and without stopping says, say to me, Bing, how's your golf swing? And he keeps going.
Okay.
And as he's about 8 feet away, I go, Bing, how's your golf swing? And he goes, well. And he does Bing Crosby. Well, at the end of the show, I go up and say, hey, I can't believe you're even here. And I can't believe I got to meet you. And he goes, hey, that was fun. He goes, I love doing that kind of stuff. He goes, anytime you want to throw me something, let's do it. So this is taking a pitch from Kershaw. This is the best of the best of the best, right? So the next week, it's a sitcom. You know the format. It's going to be a 4-hour night. It's going to be stops and starts. And Jonathan is just sitting there like a little kid, like waiting to play, because he does it. The acting he can do in his sleep, but it's the improv that he loves. So I'd catch his eye and go, excuse me. Yeah. Did you not invent lettuce? Is that you? Yes, I invented lettuce. Gone for 10 minutes. That happened for a year and a half.
Right.
So I got to play with him for, I don't know what it was, 52 episodes.
Wow.
That's meeting your idols and being even more impressed than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. But how gracious of him. I mean, that's
very
just
much
fun. Yeah.
But that's him. He loved the audience, and Bonnie Hunt was so great at navigating him back to the script, without even seeing it. But the show was funniest when it was off the rails, because Giovanni Ribisi, the actor, would look at him and he had a line, and then there'd be this pause, and they're going, Giovanni, that's your line. He goes, where, what's my line? Because it's so far past what was written in the script.
What's my line?
Yeah, because Johnny had taken it out to the parking lot and then made a left down Ventura.
That's so funny.
So those warm-up days, I loved, and when I got out of it and then got a chance to come back into it, my ego aside, that I'm not on the camera, I'm behind it.
Well, let's talk about that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been difficult for you, but I don't know. You did it anyway,
Well, it took about 10 minutes to get over myself, and then I'm standing in front of an audience getting a laugh, and I went, wow, this is pretty cool, right?
But did it? I mean,
felt
that's
right back in the mix.
That's the Hollywood roller coaster. I mean, you're up, you're down, you're up and down. I mean,
I naively thought, one pilot, I'm on my way. I've got a TV show. That very first thing I did for NBC didn't get picked up, and I went, oh, that's showbiz.
Yeah.
Right? That's the up and low. So you learn to discipline yourself and be grateful for what comes your way, which I think I've done. And I also wound up with some side hustles along the way, flipping homes, and I got my real estate license and did that stuff on the side,
right?
Not thinking I'd ever want to Boy, here's something revealing.
Yeah.
It's probably 5 years ago, Catholic church, Sunday morning. I'm sitting there and there's a woman in front of me with her husband. The husband looked like he had been beaten down. What's the old joke where they've taken the spine out? He's just been beaten so many years by being married to this woman. She's 8 o'clock, black dress, pearls, Mrs. Kravitz from Bewitched. Does that help you? This is who I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And looking around, and she owns the room, and it's church. So the priest says halfway through, turn to the person next to you or behind you and say, peace be with you. So I'm right behind her. So she turns and goes, what happened to you? And turns around. Excuse me? What happened to you?
Yeah.
You used to be on TV. Turn around. This is
Yeah.
mass. Listen to Padre up there. She couldn't fathom the fact that I wasn't on the air and wanted to know how my life was, not seeing me on Mike and Maty anymore. And I said, no, I'm fine. I'm okay. Things are good. Just turn around. But she needed, I didn't have the time to deep dive into the complexities and the ups and downs of this business, in church.
But did it hurt though when she said that?
No, I actually thought it was wildly funny because I've told this story now for 20 years, or 5 years. So yeah, but yeah, no, I loved being on the air and certainly miss it. The skill set is still there. I think it's gotten better. You learn, hosting is cumulative. Everything you do adds one more layer, but I've certainly made peace with it and understand the business that, I've got a wonderful life because of all the ups and downs.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that people say to me, because I post a lot on social media, and they go, well, you seem so humble. I'm like, because I've been in the business for 25 years. That's why. I mean, how do you not, you're every step of the way, you're getting humbled. I mean,
how about, is there any bitterness in your
no,
journey?
Not really, because I never really thought I was going to get this far.
Oh, that's interesting.
I thought it was never my goal to have my own show and my own Norman Lear empire. I just wanted to be
as a writer, showrunner, producer. You mean?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to write on TV show. I wanted to write on Cheers, to be honest. And
oh wow.
But I got, when I broke into the business, Cheers was already done. But I wound up writing with many writers who wrote on Cheers, and I wound up shooting a show that was shot on the Cheers soundstage. And so in my mind, I made it. But certainly,
well, what demons do you have as a writer, or what holds you back as a writer, whether you're working or not? Oh, and is it amplified when you're not working?
It's easy to look at other people. Here's what it is. I had a friend. I was writing on King of the Hill, and one of the other writers signed a big deal or something, and I was very, very jealous. And my other friend, he was older on King of the Hill, and he said, he gave me a great piece of advice. He said, there will always be someone younger than you, less talented than you, making more money than you. And I go, well, there it is. There it is. And so, and that really, I hung on to that for a long time. I feel like, okay, so it's easy to compare your career to somebody else, but to be honest, I'm so lucky that I have what I have. So I'm not bitter
because you got this far, but it doesn't. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it hasn't taken away the desire to do this again and work more or be where someone else is at this moment.
No, I'm happy as long as I get to keep working. I'm happy. I really am. And it's really, it's funny when you're talking about, doing warm up for these multi-camera shows. There are no multi-camera shows anymore.
It's true.
If you wanted that job today, good luck getting it. There are no shows. So how do you get that?
Good luck in a couple of ways, because I have a friend of mine. You probably know Ron Pearson.
Yeah, Ron. What about him?
Ron's one of the best out there, hands down. A great comic and a great warm-up.
Yeah.
But he said the stuff he was doing 3, 4, 5 years ago in front of an audience, he couldn't do now.
Really?
The sensitivities of what you can and cannot say.
Because he was pretty...
in front of a crowd.
He was pretty wholesome. I remember because I worked with him.
Very wholesome. It's just some things you can't say. I got another buddy of mine, Ross Schaefer, who was a corporate keynote speaker, who says even in the corporate world, there's some things you can't say. There was some reference to women speak more than men on a daily basis. They're just more verbose, right? And because I was told by the person hiring me, well, I wouldn't say that. He was using it as a way women really control the marketplace. A woman will decide what you're ultimately going to buy. That flat screen TV you got in your house, you got that because your wife said it's okay.
Right.
But that's actually sensitive to say now.
Yeah.
But, well, it didn't even occur to me.
Yeah.
Here's what sums showbiz up for me, and this happened here in Long Beach, a great little restaurant in Belmont Shore. On Thursday nights, they had a jazz piano player. It's this little French cafe, and I'd go in for a bite to eat. and this guy's playing in the corner, and there's maybe in a restaurant that seats 80, there's probably 7, and he would play and it'd be nothing. So I'd give him a little something, something, right? We're all performers and you're feeling for this guy. And I know when a song ends, so I give him a little more. And he takes this break and he comes over and sits next to me and he goes, "Hey, thanks for trying to make that happen." I said, "Of course." He said, "Buy you a drink?" "Sure." We get to talking. He goes, "Let me tell you my favorite story about supporting another actor or performer." He goes, "I'm working a club down in LA and it's the same thing. Nobody's there. It's quiet. And I finish, I don't know, I'm 30, 40 minutes in and I finish a song and I hear," and he looks up to finally thank this one person that's acknowledging his talent. And it was a woman taking a cigarette out of a pack,
Oh my God.
trying to
Oh
get
my
the,
God.
the tobacco into the filter.
Yeah.
He goes, "Boy, if that isn't showbiz right there."
Yeah, that is
Just when you think you made it at any level, you're going to get humbled one
you're
more
gonna get
time.
humbled, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's humility is a great trait anyway, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
As an interviewer, as a host, as anybody in the business, gratitude and humility will serve you a long way, I think.
Yeah, right. It's you got to enjoy the ride. And I was told that over and over, enjoy the ride. And I didn't really quite
that's so
understand what
true.
it meant. Yeah, but then when it's
When we did Match Game, Match Game 98, and we shot at CBS, we shot on the same set that they do The Price is Right. They just turned it around for us.
okay,
And I would go in early and I'd leave late and I'd drive in and I'd see that CBS sign, lit up. And I said, I don't want to leave. And I know this is going to be over. I know it's over because we're airing against Oprah at 3 p.m. on CBS. That's why I know it's over.
right.
And we did our 135 and it went away. But I never for a moment took that for granted. I loved every second of that,
Really?
knowing, hey, you know what? You could worry about it being over, but ultimately, hey, like you said, just enjoy this ride. I had my best friend did the warm up on it. It was the announcer in the warm up, and we laughed ourselves silly.
Right.
And we shot 7 a day. Game shows, you shoot a bunch, so we would shoot 4, take a lunch break, and do 3. Did 135 episodes.
Have you seen that movie Babylon yet with Brad Pitt?
I couldn't get through it.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
I think
about 20 minutes in, I went, nah, no.
Oh, you might want to revisit it because I loved
Oh,
it.
yeah?
It was about that. It was about knowing when your time is over, and it was so it was so crushing. I thought it was beautiful. But yeah, I could see. Yeah, you need to stick with it a little bit. But I loved it.
Where do you think you are in the arc of your career?
I think. Well, I mean, I think all of us. I think you hit a certain age in Hollywood, and if I haven't already approached it, I'm getting very close.
It's funny when you leave your demo, right? You have a birthday and you leave your demo.
There was an article. This is many years ago, probably 10 or 15 years ago, and I was my partner and I, we were taking over for a show. We were running a show. It was Michael Eisner's show, and there's an article in the trades in Variety or whatever, and it said veteran TV writers, Michael Jamin, Steve Claren, and it was an article about us. And then I go, wow, when did I become a veteran? And then one of the writers sitting next to me goes, that's not a good sign. It means your career is coming to an end.
Veteran was not a compliment.
Not a compliment.
I remember I had just turned 40 and I was sitting in an office with an executive at Telepictures, I believe it was. And I was sitting there with my agent, Richard Lawrence, who has since retired. I've outlasted my agent. That's not good. And this woman who's in charge of production says, "Look, Michael, I know who you are and we're fans, but here's the thing." Oh boy. She goes, "We're going to hire the person that looks like the person we want watching us." Went, well, okay, that can be a lot of things, but I can't be an 18-year-old woman, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the demo was they were searching.
Right.
So that stuck with me, that there are times, things you just can't change.
Right.
I fit a certain demo, and a seasoned host would be the category. And if that comes back, then great. There's a show coming up this fall where they're bringing back The Bachelor, but it's called The Golden Bachelor. Have you heard about this?
No.
So it's The Bachelor, produced by the same people, but it's for 60 and up. So the contestants will be 60 and up.
Right.
Called The Golden Bachelor.
Right.
Now, the thought is, well, maybe, people will value a more seasoned looking picture there. And maybe the host will come along with that. I don't know.
Oh, so what do you know? Probably not. It's going to be hosted by a 20-year-old?
It's going to be hosted by the same guy that's doing the younger version. So I think they're getting it both ways, right? They're going to get a younger host and an older demo. That's fine. Sajak stepping down with Wheel of Fortune, that there's a lot of talk about who might slip in there.
Yeah.
And that ranges from his daughter Pat Sajak has a daughter that could certainly do it. Vanna could do it. Ryan
Right.
Seacrest, there's talk.
Yeah.
Whoopi said she wants it.
Oh, wow.
Tom Bergeron's name has been tossed around.
Right.
Mine's been tossed around, but I'm tossing it. I'm tossing the name around.
Right. Hey, what about this guy? Right. No,
I did Wheel of Fortune in Vegas. Harry Friedman, who produced it, came up with a live version of Wheel of Fortune. So back in 2000, we went to the MGM. They took over the lounge, which used to be Catch a Rising Star, renamed it the Wheel of Fortune Lounge, and you got a chance to come in and play Wheel of Fortune and win prizes, cash and prizes. So it was just like the TV show, but it was not airing, but it was live.
Right.
What made the show so fun is that unlike the TV show where you're screened for intelligence and the ability to play the game, this is a bingo ball that's pulled and now you're on stage. So we have 3 contestants that could be, well, you name it. In this case, it was a woman who'd had a little bit, a guy who didn't speak the language, and it was as wild and as fun as you'd hoped it would be, because they didn't understand the concept and the letters, and some did, some didn't. And we had this poor gal had the puzzle almost revealed, and it the answer was cassette deck, and every letter was turned, everything was revealed except the C, and she's staring at it, and she goes, cassette deck?
Yeah.
And the woman next to her goes, cassette deck, you idiot. Turned to her, which you'd never see on TV, right?
No. Oh,
gosh, that was fun. We did a half a year of that. We did 3 shows a day for 6 months.
And so it's interesting. Yeah. So it's about, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. Enjoying and reinventing yourself basically constantly.
Yeah. I think you're doing it. You're still writing. I'm out there.
Yeah.
I do a lot of corporate work, and I speak, on these on this corporate circuit where a company hires you to come in and motivate their teams.
Right.
Speak to them about the ability to communicate. Salespeople that can speak well, managers that can interpret a room are going to be more successful. So that message of really being a good host, active listening, teach them that. So there's a lot of tools that overlay from our business to the corporate world. When I share in front of a team of salespeople, last year I was the keynote speaker for the National Association of Automobile Dealers, and you have a room full of salespeople whose life bread determines on whether they're going to crush that sale, and they're talking about the rejection rate. And I said, "Yeah, I hear you." I said, "Let me tell you a little story about SAG-AFTRA. 185,000 members. At any given moment, 85% or 85% are unemployed. And of the 15% that work, 1% make 100 grand. So what do you do with the word no?"
Yeah. What's the answer?
You oh, this is my Amazon package just came. You leverage the rejection. You take an Olympic athlete who loses by 1/10 of a second and comes in second, yet they're gratified by that incremental win. So you focus on these positive gains as a writer, as a performer, and anything that you do. And then you don't let whatever success you've had, anybody has had, make you complacent. Gary Kasparov, the Grandmaster chess player, calls it the gravity of past success.
Yeah.
We can get weighted down by whatever we think we've had. And if you're done and don't want to work again, well, then you can live in that place. But if you want to be relevant and continue to work, then, keep trying something, anything. Jonathan Winters actually said to me, the number of times he failed so miserably and bombed so horribly meant that he was trying.
Right. Meant that he was still
because you got to get out there and fail huge. And hearing Jonathan say that, so we'll stick around. I said, it's going to be a long night. I just read the script. I'll be failing here 5 hours.
How funny.
He said, go for it. Go do it. Don't worry about it.
And so this takes us to you. I know you have a course where you teach kind of this.
Yeah, I'm putting together a master class on hosting. Podcasts are pretty popular now, he says to Michael Jamin on the podcast. And you could go to YouTube and set up your studio like I did. There's camera 4, you
can and everything.
Yeah, it's just a lot of free time during the lockdown. But I realized, go to YouTube, figure out how to set up your studio. Everybody's doing a podcast, but no one is teaching anybody how to host a podcast, or the art of conversation is dying on our campuses with young folks that have learned to text. God bless you. I'm not an old man on my yawn yelling, what are you doing? I'm embracing it. I get it. And I went back to my university couple of months ago and spoke to the dean that I graduated with and from radio TV at Long Beach State and said, I went through your curriculum and there's nothing there teaching kids how to communicate and interview. He goes, yeah, he said, I agree. So I'm going to go back to Long Beach State in the fall and teach this master class on how to host.
But it's also,
I
but
think
it
I
will
can
be
overlay
available.
and say again.
It will be available on your website too at some point, no?
Yeah, you know, we're kind of figuring out what this is going to look like, but I think I will do a version where, you know, we can release this. I'll do it obviously for the university, but another version where people can access it and maybe take something from it. Because I'm not stopping it. I mean, I love the art of this, and for me, again, as I said earlier, it is cumulative. I learned something from every conversation. You know, I say to people, ask somebody a question and then do something radical, and that is shut up. You know, listen to learn and not respond. What we learned in the television world is that you do have 7 questions and you do have 6 minutes and you just want to spit out that to get closure on that segment. But in reality, those never make for good conversations.
Right.
So regardless of the conversation you're having, people are aching to be heard. Everybody wants to feel relevant. Everybody wants to feel that they're being paid attention to in any walk of life. So the next time somebody comes up to you, you might ask them something. You might look them in the eye and say, how you doing? And expect an answer. Wait for an answer.
Yeah.
That's the other thing we learned too, is the idea of leaving a little break and a little pause in a conversation, because somebody will say something, especially on television when the cameras are rolling. You might be surprised what you will get if you take one more beat.
Yeah.
Right?
I think you're absolutely right about that. I mean, sometimes I'll watch an interviewer and I feel like there's a genuine lack of curiosity. They're just trying to get to, they ask me a question, they don't really care what the answer is. They're just, you say your part, and then I'll say my part, and then you say your part, and you know, it's like, well, are you having a conversation or you know, what is this, you know?
More difficult than it appears.
Yeah.
You know, you do have time constraints, and you do need to get something accomplished. And I do need to promote the movie and the book you're writing, Michael Jamin, coming out soon. But you can't rush that, and you can't get used to the sound of your own voice, thinking that you're making a point here. I did a lot of construction work and a lot of remodeling, and I make a drywall analogy to conversation. See how this plays out. When I started doing construction and I put a piece of drywall up and you had 2 pieces together and you have a seam, you take joint compound and you slather it on there, and then you let it dry, and then you sand, and now you've hidden the seam. Well, if you're doing it like I am, you're sanding a lot because you want to make sure you cover that seam. You watch a great drywaller, somebody who can mask off a wall, and they use a very thin amount of set, and it goes right up that wall. And when it dries, there's so little compound left.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in conversation, where you pull everything back to the very minimum, and you're going to have a better finish. It's going to be, there's less mud, there's less conversational mud.
Yeah.
It applies to many things, certainly to conversation.
It's interesting. Yeah. It's clear to me that this is what you know, that this is your art, and you know how to do it. And so, yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about it.
I love it. I really do. And it was, you know, you could say class clown, because that's really what, I mean, that's the easiest way to describe it, in the 2nd and 3rd and the 4th and the 5th grade, butting in and getting a laugh, but also because I was raised by a family of teachers, my mom, my dad, my aunts and uncles. So the backstory of that was I was afraid of getting in trouble. So I try to find that balance of making a joke and not getting in trouble. Right. But I clearly remember sitting in college classes thinking, oh boy, you're losing them here, Teach. I think I need to jump in or take us to commercial or do so. So I would jump in with some non sequitur, and they'd look at it. I mean, it got so bad to where if we had an assignment, let's say a term paper, I would take the teacher aside on the break and go, look, I know you want a term paper here, but how about I do like an oral presentation on this? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, I'll get up and perform whatever this thing is. He goes, okay. To me, that was my out. I figured, I got out of this. It's so I loved the performing side of it.
Yeah. I have a great admiration for what you do, really, because it's not just, you say it's class clown, but it's not really that. It really,
well, hopefully at this point it's refined.
Yeah. It really
so there is an art to it, and that's why I still think it's valuable. I think it's valuable to teach it to this day. It's more now than ever, where we don't have to communicate as much, where we don't have to get on the phone, where we don't see, especially during the lockdown, we didn't see each other at all.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I think people who speak well and can communicate and be great listeners, not only will you improve your work life, but I would venture to say your relationships will probably get better if
Yeah.
you take a moment to listen.
Take a moment. Yeah. Wow, Michael Berger, thank you so much for doing this. And for
Michael
people who
Jamin, I hope we do this again. I'd
hope
like
so
to be
too.
on a show that you're writing on.
Yeah, I'd like
But
to
I don't
have a
want to
show of
act.
mine.
Can you do something? Give me
I'm on
that. Give me a host kind of role.
Yeah.
Like God, how great was what was the who am I thinking of? The Gary Shandling show, who broke
Oh.
all rules.
Oh,
Was that one of the greatest?
That was fantastic. I mean, fantastic. Yeah. There's Larry Sanders and Gary Shandling. It's Gary Shandling. So both are amazing.
That's right.
God,
That's
he was so
right.
good. And he started
Yep.
off as a writer on Sanford and Son. Which
When
is
I got
amazing.
Mike and Maty, we were at NAPTY in Miami promoting the show and went to Joe's Stone Crab, and sitting in the corner was Gary Shandling, who I idolized, hadn't met him.
Yeah.
And my only line was, I went up to him and I said, I just want to say hello. I said, you're the reason I got Showtime. I mean, that's all I had,
Right.
but he was literally the reason I got cable,
Yeah.
and got to know him a little bit, like anybody who,
Yeah.
you're a fan, you just sit there and you're in awe of that,
Yeah.
that kind of mind. So I
He's
certainly have
amazing.
my idols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's amazing. Well, thank you again.
Well, thank
for
you,
joining
Michael.
me.
I appreciate that. Let's get this strike over with and
Yes.
work together sooner than later.
I hope so. And let's get people. I wanted to make sure people go find you, michaelberger.com if they want to.
Michaelberger.com. You'll see my, you and I had a conversation about this just last week about the dread of posting on social media, and I need to get better at it. And I don't think anybody needs to hear what I have to say, but if this masterclass comes to fruition, then I will post. I can be found on my website, on LinkedIn, Facebook.
Yeah.
And perhaps we can, move the needle a little bit with that. But I'm always happy to hear from people. I'm always thrilled when somebody remembers a show or two. And as I get older, I can picture who's coming at me and what show they watched.
Yes. That's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
Michael.
Thank you again so much. All right.
See you next time.
All right, everyone. That was another great episode of Screenwriters Need to Hear This. What a wonderful guest. So interesting to hear from him. All right, everyone. Until next week, more great guests coming up, and keep writing.
This has been an episode of Screenwriters Need to Hear This with Michael Jamin and Phil Hudson. If you're interested in learning more about writing, make sure you register for Michael's monthly webinar at michaeljamin.com/webinar. If you found this podcast helpful, consider sharing it with a friend and leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. For free screenwriting tips, follow Michael Jamin on social media at Michael Jamin Writer. You can follow Phil Hudson on social media at Phil A. Hudson. This podcast was produced by Phil Hudson. It was edited by Dallas Crane. Music by Ken Joseph. Until next time, keep writing.